Now, with respects to taking people out of context, because I think that is that's something that you see so much in the media, and I think it's really, really important. And a lot of people listening to this, you guys know now that what start off as these episodes is just hardcore mental health. It's really everything, right? Because when you dip into things like taking words out of context, giving people labels, how do you think that affects them psychologically? How do you think that makes people feel? And thus, how do you think that makes them act and behave? And then they behave in ways which reaffirm those labels, right? So this is why I'm talking about this stuff. I know I don't get too much to the news and whatnot, but it's important to cover. A few weeks ago, Kanye West went on the Joe Rogan podcast. I don't know if you folks saw it. It was about 3 hours, I want to say. I saw it all, painfully. It was spread out through a couple of days. My little take on that is this. It was all over the place. This was clearly, Kanye is a man who has a lot of vision, and he has a lot of insight and a lot of plans that he wants to do. But man, listening to him is painful. Like, if you love Kanye, you'll be like, dude, this guy's a genius. And he just thinks like Elon Musk thinks. All over the place. You can't understand either of them. But if you don't like Kanye, you'll be like, dude, this is such a stupid idiot. He needs to stay in his music lane. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know either. I've listened to his music. I like some of it. Some of it I'm not too huge on. To each their own. It's subjective matter. But what I can tell you is this. Was it a couple years ago now? Kanye had this statement that came across TMZ, and it was all over the place, where he came across as saying slavery was a choice. Now, immediately when this happens, right, I remember I heard it. I was like, that's weird. But honestly, I didn't care too much to look into it because I knew, like, a part of me knows. I'm like, if I hear a little bit, it doesn't make sense for me to just make a video off of that. I have to do more research. I either have to hear the full story and then go into it to give my side, or just not get into it at all. I chose not to get into it. Now, here's the thing. He says slavery was a choice, right? And people just blow up. People are losing, blah, 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 people writing about him. And then in this 40-second period on the Joe Rogan Experience, they talk about it, and Kanye essentially, and I'm hardcore paraphrasing here, but he's like, hey man, not slavery. I'm not referring to the guys back in the day in the cornfields with the chains on them and you have slave owners. I'm talking about in the context of the music industry, musicians signing away their lives with record labels because you don't get taught these business deals and what is a lucrative contract as opposed to not a lucrative contract. So you sign away things like your album and how much money you're going to make and when you can release music, and you become a slave to this company. You become a slave to this label that almost owns you, that owns your music, and through your music owns you. So when he's saying, hey man, in this context of the music industry, slavery is a choice, and it's hard because Kanye talks so, I don't know, weirdly. It's hard to understand sometimes. So he's a guy to take out of context very easily. God forbid you don't like the guy as is. You're gonna go out of your way to take him out of context without even knowing it, because it's just, emotional biases. But I thought that was so fascinating, because that's something that I remember hearing, and I remember being like, well, I mean, this is a weird guy, whatever. And then just to hear him literally 40 seconds in that podcast, he's like, Joe just totally breaks it down. He's like, hey, you didn't mean slavery like that. You meant slavery in respects to young artists signing away their rights of releasing music and how much money they should make from their music to these big record labels because they don't know any better. In a sense, that is slavery in that context. Well, guys, doesn't that change the whole effing picture now? Don't you think that's important to know? It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I think it's so important that we have these discussions, because when we only read headlines, it's dangerous, my friends. It's dangerous.